Okay, when you weren't looking, I started the meatball recipe, and what I did is I sauteed off a little bit of finely chopped onion followed by finely chopped garlic, allowed that to cool down, and then I used this almost 99% lean ground turkey, so it's almost fat-free, and to that I added the garlic and the onion and a little bit of chopped parsley, and I'm just stirring that so it's nice and smooth. I'm going to flavor it with some Worcestershire sauce. It's going to give it a little flavor. And you'll notice on almost all these recipes, there isn't any additional salt going into any of the recipes because it's really not something we need to eat on a daily basis. It's your preference at home to add salt if you wish. So I wanted to share with you a little interesting item that's going to go in this meatball is a little bit of tomato sauce. And what's really fun is this quinoa instead of a breadcrumb. And that's got a lot of nutritional values to it, and that's what's going to be the binder. When we make meatloaf or meatballs, we usually put in ground breadcrumbs to be able to have it thicken up and to be able to have it nice soft texture. But tonight we're using quinoa, and our dietitians will talk to you a little bit about why we use quinoa, because it is such a wonderful ingredient that's so good for us.
One thing that we like to do is we really like to try to get in more whole grains and more plant-based proteins wherever we can. And quinoa is a type of grain that is able to do just that for us. So quinoa is a plant-based protein, and you can cook it just like rice. So it's a whole grain, and that's kind of killing two birds with one stone when we put it in our meatballs because it helps to keep everything together, but it's also adding in some of that plant-based protein that you might not get from something like a breadcrumb.
A zoodle pasta. It's kind of a wannabe pasta, but it's made from plant-based fruits, so it's absolutely wonderful. And what I have here is a little zoodle maker. And you can get these in the stores. And I basically just trim the zucchini, and you can use carrots or sweet potatoes or yellow squash, cucumbers, all types of vegetables can be worked on this little machine. I'm going to drop this into the center and put the zucchini in the middle, and I'm just going to hand crank it, and look at that. You got these very cool little noodles that come out of there that make like spaghetti, but they're so much better for us than putting all those carbs in our body. So we're eating these wonderful vegetable carbs versus having the carbs. You got this fun little tool to play with. You could use with kind of little Hawaiian scene. It could be fun to be able to make a palm tree, right? So that's what we're doing with the zoodles, and I'm going to show you how we're going to cook these tonight in just a moment. And it's a pretty quick dish. So if you are, if mom and dad, if you're getting home from work and there isn't a lot of time, you can find these zoodles ready to go in the grocery store, but they're just not as nice as the ones you can make at home by hand. So do what you think's best in the timeline that you have to work with, okay? So for that zoodle dish, I'm going to start in a nice sized skillet. It's going to be preheated. I'm going to add a little bit of oil. I hardly ever use a lot of oil in these cooking processes because it just doesn't need to be there. And I'm going to add a little bit of chopped garlic to that skillet and let it just sweat till it smells really nice and perfume-like. And then I'm going to add the zoodles. And I've got some that I made ahead of time so we could have enough for everybody. And I'll let those cook for just a moment. Meanwhile, we'll talk about some of the health benefits of having zoodles versus pasta.
What we're doing, of course, is using zucchini, but you could use yellow squash. You could use really anything that's firm enough that you think you could get to spiralize into a noodle. So we've done sweet potatoes. You could do beets or carrots or anything like that that'll really stand up to that spiralizer.
So after I started to cook those zucchini noodles in there, the skillet might be a little dry, so I saved a little bit of the low sodium vegetable stock to add some moisture to that. Behind that little bit of stock, I'm going to add some sweet basil pesto, which you can buy in the store or you can make your own. The make your own is really much better. The one I use tonight is nut-free, so anyone who has a nut allergy, you're free from being able to be worried about that. And I don't usually add a lot of liquid to it because the zucchini retains a lot of water on its own. So it may not need any more stock to it because it will continue to extract some of its own natural liquids. After I have put in the pesto, I'm going to put in some little grape tomatoes that are fun for lunch, and I just split them in half and added that to the skillet. I'm going to let those just warm up, and as they warm up, I'm going to put in some nice pieces of spinach. And I don't usually tear it. I put a lot of spinach in there. You see the ratio of the amount of spinach that's in there is a lot, because those spinach leaves are so good for us. They're so high in nutrition, high in fiber, and I just love them. They make the dish really look sensational. So I put the meatballs in the oven. After I added the quinoa and I worked it in there really well, I just put it in the oven until they cook, until they're fully cooked. And I would say fully cooked, if you have a thermometer at home, it's 165 degrees, or it's about 20 minutes on a 350-degree oven. So I'm going to pull those out of the oven in a moment, but meanwhile I'm going to plate up this nice zucchini pasta dish. You see those zoodles are nice and long, and that's going to make it a lot of fun when you go to eat it, because you'll have that nice long noodle to work with. So the spinach pretty much wilts down all on its own, and it makes for a dynamic dish. You see all the bright colors of the garden in that dish as we go to eat it. And I'm going to put a nice little stem of sweet basil on top, because I just can't help myself. I think it needs to look good. So the meatballs are beautiful. They're nice and round. They have a lot of color. And what I want you to notice about this pan is that there's no residual fat. Because it's such a lean turkey that you don't have a lot of fat to contend with, so we're eating very healthy food products tonight. So I think that makes a big difference. And I think that you'll be surprised at how good these turkey quinoa meatballs are. I gave them to my daughter when she was needing some therapy and stuff, and she actually loved them a lot, and we've been using them ever since. I learned a lot how to cook healthy food products when she was in trouble, and now she's doing great because we ate the right stuff, and we continue to eat the right stuff. I'm going to put over the top of these right stuff meatballs some nice fresh marinara sauce. And I'm going to finish that with a little bit of Parmesan cheese, which the servers will bring to your tables with the meatballs. And then I'm going to accent that with a little bit of parsley and a little bit of fresh oregano, just because I love the way that looks. So there's your turkey meatballs with the marinara sauce and a little bit of Parmesan cheese. All right, this is going to be a fun dessert. It's a chocolate mousse that we're going to make with avocados. And we'll talk about the health benefits of avocado. But I just basically split them in half. And I put them in this food processor, same one you have at home, only this one's a little bit bigger. I'm going to use some pure maple syrup. This is not the maple syrup that has the corn syrup in it. Use some almond milk, which I have a sample of in front of us. Almond milk, cocoa powder, which you can use Dutch cocoa powder. And then I have a little bit of vanilla. And that's going to go in the machine. I'm going to let it spin and come very smooth. That's the cocoa powder. Looks like a chimney, right? And what's happening is the machine is spinning the avocados, and it's making a nice, smooth, creamy texture. So if you say to yourself, oh no, I don't like avocados, you're going to be surprised how much you're going to like avocados when they're mixed with chocolate and cocoa powder. So while you weren't looking, I took the liberty of melting down some chocolate chips, and I did that over a double boiler. And that's what I have here, is some lovely chocolate chips that have just been melted down until it's nice and smooth, like you would dip your strawberries in for Valentine's Day. So I'm going to stop the machine for just a moment and scrape down the sides to make sure everything that's in there is all getting smoothly pureed. And while that's continuing the process, I'm going to work in, just slowly pour in all of the melted chocolate. That's my favorite part because it's so rich and delicious and creamy. Reminds me of a Lindor commercial at Easter when they're making those bad-for-you rabbits. But I'm going to let the dietitian talk for a minute about the health benefits of avocados.
So avocados are actually really packed with monounsaturated fats, and those are the good fats. They help keep our heart healthy.
So the mousse is done. I'll let it spin. After I added that melted chocolate, it became nice, rich, and creamy. It's very velvety. And you'll notice this when you get it at your table, but you'll be serving that course here pretty soon. But I use pastry bags because I like to have the food look as good as it's going to taste. So I'll transfer the chocolate mousse into a pastry bag that's fitted with a tip. And I'm going to make a parfait out of this using all the berries that we spoke of earlier. Tonight we have raspberry, blueberry, blackberry, and strawberry are all the berries that are going to be in the profile of this parfait dessert. So in this cute little parfait glass, I'm going to start with a little measure of some of the chocolate mousse, just down there at the bottom. And then I'm going to go behind it with some strawberries, a nice layer of strawberries, because they're so good for me, I can't stand it. Look how good they are. They're nice and sliced, they're ripe. And on top of that, I'm going to put a little bit more mousse, not a lot, just a little bit, and then I'm going to embellish it with blueberries, which we'll talk about blueberries and why they're so good for you. Some blackberries, a few raspberries. I'm going to pack them down in there just a little bit, and then I'm going to finish the top off with a nice little rosette of that chocolate mousse, and it's so pretty. And then I'm going to finish it with a couple of kiwi fruits to make it nice and pretty. And then I'm going to finish it with a little bit of mint. Now on your tables, you're going to have 2 plates that are going to come to you. You have options to be able to put in some sliced toasted almonds or shaved dark chocolate, which I'm using. You have some chia seeds because they're so good for you. And then you have chopped peanuts, kiwi, and some graham cracker crumbs. In case you like graham cracker, that's going to go on top too. So that's what you have to work with for tonight's berry and avocado chocolate mousse parfait. It's an absolutely lovely and delicious and good for you dessert. So I hope you will try it at home when you get there, okay?